Welcome back to Credentialing Chronicles,
where we spill the tea on the doctors you see.
And we're spilling it, baby, all across America.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, Nylene and Shannon sitting there talking about you while you pull up a chair. They holding it.
Welcome back, baby, to Credentialing Chronicles. As always, I'm Shannon.
And I'm Nylene. Hi, Shannon. How are you today? Where are you in the world today?
I am in Minnesota, baby. We are both in Minnesota.
Ooh, Minnesota. Right? Okay. All right. What is Minnesota known for? I mean, I definitely need to put it on my bucket list. So where should I go?
Yeah. So Minnesota, right? They say it's known for the Boundary Waters, the Mall of America.
Ooh, I'm always down for a good mall.
I'm always down for a good mall, honey. I could spend all day in there. My money can't spend all day, but I can spend all day. But anyway, Prince, honey, Purple Rain gave us Raspberry Beret. And then, the Minnesota Timberwolves, it is not known for healthcare fraud. I'll tell you that. But after this episode, some might think that it really should be, because what has unfolded, baby, in this state over the past several years is one of the most extraordinary, Nylene. I say that word very carefully. One of the most extraordinary series of fraud scandals in the history of American social services. I mean, my love, we are talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. We are talking about a federal corrective action plan. How many times are those issued, right? Put $2 billion of Medicaid funding on the line. And we are talking about a provider revalidation effort that terminated over 18,000 providers from the Medicaid roll in a matter of months. 18K just off of it.
And that's all before we get to the murder.
The murder!
And, girl, we have a nurse practitioner that shot his girlfriend, who then tried to stage it as a suicide, a nonprofit that turned into a pandemic child nutrition fund, $250 million stolen. Then we have a personal care attendant fraud ecosystem. I mean, just all kinds of stuff, right? So we've got federal government, we've got fraud, we've got murder, we've got scandal, we've got all of this going on this episode, Shannon.
All of it, baby. Yes. All of it, Nylene. So I guess we should say our disclosure. We have not personally credentialed any of these doctors or healthcare professionals. Okay. All of this information, you guys, is publicly available, and it is for information, gossip, spill teaing purposes only. We are not offering medical or legal advice. We're just in here to talk about what's happening and have a good show and make you all laugh while you clean your house. Right?
Yeah, so before we get started, we would like to take a minute and say thank you to our first episode sponsor. Every state has a different story. One thing doesn't change. Healthcare organizations across the country are facing increasing pressure to navigate a more complex reimbursement landscape. Whether it's evolving payer policies, managed care challenges, staffing shortages, or the need to improve financial performance, today's surgical providers are being asked to do more than ever before. That's why we are proud to partner with our sponsor, Nimble Solutions. Nimble works with more than 1,300 ambulatory surgery centers, anesthesia groups, surgical practices, and other organizations throughout the United States, really helping them strengthen their financial performance through technology-enabled revenue cycle management. So, to learn how Nimble is helping surgical organizations and healthcare practices nationwide achieve stronger financial results, please visit NimbleRCM.com. So, thank you, Nimble, for sponsoring this episode.
NimbleRCM.com.
Yes, so let's get into it. We are going into Fergus Falls, Minnesota. Population of about 14,000 people, so not too big, not too much. About double of my town. Anyway, it's about 50 miles east of Fargo. I think that's a TV show or something, or a movie you told me. Right?
It's a movie, remember? That's where we get the Minnesota accent from.
Got it. Okay. So there's a walk-in clinic that has like an ER. Anyway, there's a nurse practitioner, right? Nurse practitioner working in the ED. He is 45 years old at the time of these events, and he's married. Not only is he married, but he's got four children, girl. Four.
4 babies. Okay. So he's doing good.
But girl, he's been having a secret 2-year extramarital affair with a coworker. A
2 years.
32-year-old licensed practical nurse. Yes, an LPN girl.
Ooh, so he's kind of her superior. Right? He's her superior.
Right? Yeah, if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, they met at work, they're doing some work things. Okay, so tell me what happened. I'm all ears.
So they met in the clinic in 2020 and they worked together.
Okay.
Over the course of their relationship, they ended up becoming entangled in their life because she's struggling with depression and addiction. And unfortunately, she had previously attempted to overdose on some medications. So I feel bad for her,
Yeah. She's going through a lot.
Yes. Well, what happened was he had prescribed her multiple medications and had given her approximately over $28,000 over the course of their relationship. So he's
Of the dollars of the 28?
Yeah. So he's like her financial and medical lifeline. So here we are simultaneously living a completely separate life between his wife and his girlfriend.
So he's an ER nurse practitioner and he has a girlfriend with an addiction problem and he going over seeing her, prescribing her a whole bunch of medicine using his prescriptive authority. And then he goes home and takes care of the wife and the 4 children. Okay. That sounds like some problems.
Right. So the question is, right, we brought this up in a previous episode. At what point does ethics process equal a violation? Because prescribing a controlled substance to someone with whom you have a personal relationship can sometimes cross a boundary. Now, we're going to come back to that from the credentialing lens, but girl, first, let's talk about what happened in December of 2022. Okay. Yes, I'm going to do this in my storytelling voice. You ready?
Okay.
It's the early morning hours, and they'd gone out to several bars in downtown St. Paul. They ran into the LPN's new boyfriend, girl, at one of the bars.
Oh my God, what happened?
So, girl, the nurse practitioner ends up punching the new boyfriend in his face.
No, he didn't. The nurse practitioner. He was in love with her.
I guess. He was like, don't touch my LPN. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So anyway, fight ensues. They all go their separate ways. The nurse practitioner and the LPN go back to their apartment, to her apartment, which is also in downtown St. Paul. And then at 2:50 in the morning, the nurse practitioner calls 911.
What happened? ¿Qué pasó?
So he tells the dispatch that the LPN, his friend, girlfriend, whatever, had grabbed his handgun from his backpack, locked herself in the bathroom, and shot herself. He said he heard the shot, broke down the bathroom door, and found her on the floor with a gunshot wound to the left side of her head.
And he did not. So they bumped into her ex-boyfriend. He done got mad, girl. He was in a jealous
No,
phase.
her current boyfriend, because they're both dating each other people or married or doing
that was
stuff
her
with other
current
people
boyfriend. Oh,
while
he
they're
was
together.
jealous. Ooh, he was like, I didn't give you all this money. I didn't give you all this drugs. And you got a current boyfriend. Ooh, okay, I already see the fight. Ooh. And then she's dead. Oh my God, so what happened? What happened?
Right. So check this out. From the moments that the detectives show up at the house, they're like, something's fishy. See, what had happened was he said he had washed his hands in the sink right right when he had found her or whatever. But the problem is that when the officers got there, the sink was completely dry. He said that she was still breathing when he found her, and then he tried to revive her, but then somehow waited 4 minutes before calling 911. He said he placed the gun, check this out. He takes the gun from the scene that supposedly she killed herself. He takes the gun, puts it in his suitcase because he's quote unquote scared. So then what happened was when the investigators move her body, girl, they found a piece of the bathroom door underneath her. It was like the metal latch piece. It was underneath her. So that piece would only be there if the door had been forced open before she was shot, not after.
Oh, yeah. You got me. I'm on the jury. Convict. We ready. Death penalty.
Stop.
I'm ready.
No.
And you was giving her drugs and you done gave her $28,000. You was enabling her. Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready. Did you check his license? Is his license still active, dude? Have they revoked the license?
We're not to that part of the story.
Okay.
We're at the door. We're at the door.
I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're not on the credentialing angle. Okay.
So the door is forced open before she gets shot. That's the only way that a latch could be underneath her.
That's the only way.
Right. Well, so that destroys his entire story because he claims that he heard the shot through the closed door and then forced it open, which would mean that the latch is like over her body, not underneath it. So anyway, the investigators concluded that most likely the scenario was that actually they got into an argument and she tried to lock herself in the bathroom because she was afraid because he's probably coming after her. Then he poses the body to make it look like a suicide, placing the gun on her chest, and then waits to call 911, only he forgets that there's a latch. He doesn't realize that the latch had broken when he tried to bust in the door before he killed her.
I'm going with their theory. I'm going your theory, their theory. I'm right there. And then there was some DNA or something. I know that because did they test any DNA? What happened? I mean, they had to have been able to find some DNA, right?
Well, what's interesting is that the DNA and fingerprints on the gun were hers and not his. So, of course, the defense is going to go ahead and say, "Oh, this is a case for reasonable doubt." But the prosecution goes ahead and counters it and says, "Well, he's actually just staging the scene because he had time to clean the gun, put her fingerprints, and do the whole thing."
Because of that 4 minutes.
Yes. So what happened was the county jury did end up convicting him of second-degree intentional murder, not premeditated.
Okay.
And then in April, the judge sentenced him to 30 years in Minnesota Department of Corrections. And then in 2025, the Court of Appeals unanimously upheld his conviction. So from our world, what do you think that this case teaches us? Like from the credentialing world. I mean, that's a really good tea spilling story, but like the reality is let's bring it back to what we do every day, right?
Every day, right? Well, I mean, two things really stand out. First is the prescribing to a patient, you're romantically involved with. I mean, we all know that is a huge problem. He was the nurse practitioner with the authority to prescribe, and he was prescribing that medication to the woman that, he was seeing. I mean, that right there is an ethical violation under virtually every nursing board standard of professional conduct in the United States, baby. I mean, the Minnesota Board of Nursing, like every other state board, you all, has rules about the nature of professional relationships with patients. And when you are literally prescribing to someone, they are your patient. I mean, that is the relationship in the definition. And that it's a clinical relationship and there should be an assessment and of history and a bill charge for it. Because all of that thing goes along with it, right? Full stop.
Yeah. And the thing is nobody caught it. And the reason that nobody caught it is because everything was being done in secret.
All the time. I mean, the relationship was secret. His wife didn't even know, poor lady. I mean, poor lady. His children didn't know. The employer didn't know. And I mean, it's no gap, no credentialing file or background check or no license renewal application is going to flag a secret freaking rendezvous. Secret lovers. I mean, but there's a second angle here, I guess, that does have a credentialing solution, right? And that's the financial entanglement. I mean, he gave her 28,000 of the US dollars of the bank, over the course of their relationship. Yeah. I mean, he was paying her rent, honey. He was buying her Gucci. These are the kinds of things that tend to come out in the civil proceedings or, the malpractice cases and the licensing board complaints that really happen. And this is why internally peer review, quality oversight, and behavioral health monitoring programs for licensed professionals, practitioners really matter because truly patterns of behavioral or personal, like Nylene said, entanglements with patients when they surface need to really go to the credentialing committee and talked about. They shouldn't be hidden in an HR file.
Right. And because HR might handle some personal matters, but the reality is sometimes things that happen in HR don't make it to the credentialing file. So what do we do with that?
Never. I mean, the clinical and professional conduct question it's a credentialing question. It all speaks to the holistic portion of the doctor or provider, and it belongs in the credentialing file. It belongs in the NPDB. If there is a result in a board action or some type of privilege restriction, I mean, really, his prescribing relationship with this woman should have triggered a licensed board complaint. I don't know. We don't know whether it ever did. But if it had, a report would have then been made to the NPDB, and his hospital and health plan credentialing files would have, reflected that. And that creates accountability in the system. And that's how peer review and credentialing, work together. And spot patterns. I mean, what are you thinking?
Yeah, exactly. And the reality is sometimes we need to work on our communication between HR and the credentialing file because we could miss things. But girl, I have more stories to tell you. But before we get into our next story, let's talk a little bit about Baton Health, who is our next sponsor. And thanks to tools like Baton Health, we as credentialing professionals have the opportunity to really look, scan, verify, and be prepared for everything because we can check all 50 states at once. We can check their license, their DEA, their sanctions. And the importance of accuracy of information is really invaluable in an organization to ensure patient safety throughout our organization. If we want to verify license, sanctions, DEAs in all 50 states in a one-stop shop, we invite you to please check out Baton Health at batonhealth.com.
I love it. Love Baton.
So Shannon, I hear you're going to tell me about $250 million. You like to talk about money a lot. So, I mean, we got to talk about what we're going to learn because us credentialing folk out here, we ain't making any money. And so we out here trying to figure out what is going on.
Well, we are going to be the pioneers of connecting credentialing with billing. Watch, Nylene. Because truly, if people realized how important it is to look at their billing, to spot patterns in fraudulent billing, you would how much money would that save?
Yeah, and I think we are already bridging the gap in the industry with provider enrollment really being recognized as part of credentialing process. And so I'm really proud of where we're going, and I think we need to help push it to the next level, which is how credentialing professionals can use billing data to ensure that our practices are safe. But anyway, tell me about the story, girl.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you about the story, but first I wanted to talk about how your glasses match your shirt, and I love it. I don't know how you do it every single
Well,
time, but
I love these glasses. I be trying to keep,
don't say their name. They ain't sponsoring us. So
keep it
shoot.
fresh.
They
That way
sponsor.
people go on YouTube and look at our crazy faces and be like, oh, that's who those girls are.
That's
Because,
who those girls
sometimes people be talking about us and they don't know what we look like. And we're like,
I know, and
hey.
I have a pair too. I just, when we got to the RV, I put them up, but I need to take them out. I really do. Okay. I'm ready. You ready? Story number 2. So I need to be upfront about something with you, Nylene Flores, the beautiful, sexy Nylene Flores. Because before we dive in, this is not a story about a physician or a nurse. All right. This is a story about a nonprofit organization, mommy. Okay. And they participated, baby, in a federal health care adjacent program. And I think you know it. It's the Federal Child Nutrition Program. And it turned into the single largest COVID-19 fraud scam in the history, my love, of the United States.
Please don't tell me another COVID scam.
And, from another area, right? I mean, there's no stopping them. I mean, right? So when we're looking at this, we need to include in this episode, really, really, because the mechanism of the fraud is 100% a provider enrollment and credentialing story. And so that's really, what we're going to talk about, what happened here. It has directly reshaped how states across the country think about enrolling providers into publicly funded programs.
Makes sense. So give us the background.
Well, I can't do my storytelling voice like you. I'm just Shannon. Like, I can't do it like you. You do it good. So, so Feeding Our Future was a Minnesota nonprofit, and they were founded in 2016. So before COVID. Okay. So, they started out to do good. Its role was to serve as a sponsor, okay, in the Federal Child Nutrition Program, a program that pays for meals for low income children. A great thing. Future onboard individual meal sites, restaurants, community centers, daycare facilities, into the, program. They would oversee their operations and receive administrative fees in exchange. And the name of the company that did that was Feeding Our Future. Okay. So what happened is, before the pandemic, Feeding Our Future was receiving about 3.4 million annually for this program. I mean, that's a lot of money, right? I mean, it's not nothing, right? But a manageable nonprofit organization, could manage that. But then guess what? COVID happened. And what happened with COVID?
Well, I'm guessing the rules changed because everybody was getting extra help or something.
Everything. Yeah, you're right. And, basically during the COVID-19 pandemic, the USDA waived significant requirements for participation into this program now. So what happened is they allowed the for-profit restaurants to profit as well, to literally participate in this. So they allowed off-site food distribution, outside of the educational program systems. The oversight, like guardrails that were lowered intentionally to make sure that food, got to kids who needed it as fast as possible, because everybody was having a problem. And this was literally a national emergency. So her name is Amy Bach. Okay. She's the founder, executive director of Feeding Our Future. She saw an opportunity. I mean, that's all we can say, right? Because when you look at everything, her and her co-conspirators exploited every single loosened requirement, Nylene.
So then specifically, can you go ahead and then walk me through the mechanism and what they did? Because, okay, I see feeding families. I see good stuff. So what's going on?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to try to give you the story the way you give me yours. Okay. I mean, Feeding Our Future recruited individuals and basically entities to open federal child nutrition program sites all over Minnesota. So these sites were supposed to be serving meals to children in that area. And many of them served not one child. Okay. So within days or weeks of being formed, these sites were claiming to serve thousands of children daily. Feeding Our Future literally submitted fraudulent claims to the Minnesota Department of Education, Nylene, with fake documentation, fake attendance rosters. Yeah, fake meal counts. Nylene, the creme on the crop, the creme on the cake, fake list of children, literal made up children's names.
That's insane. No way.
They were names on a piece of paper that literally what they did.
So the money just kept flowing, though.
And you know it. The money flowed out immediately to co-conspirators. Feeding Our Future opened more than 250 of these sites. Can you believe it?
That's insane.
I know. So okay, let's just talk about it really quick. In 2019, they received 3.4 million. Okay, so that was like regular. We said that's good for, yeah. Nylene, in 2021, they received 200 million.
What?
Yes. In total, the scheme, I know, literally, the scheme fraudulently obtained and dispersed more than $240 million in federal funds. And the tea that I can give you is, do you want to know what she spent it on?
What?
You give me murder. You give me that the latch was behind the body. Okay.
Yes.
I give you luxury vehicles. I give you commercial real estate.
Well, at least the real estate appreciates, but like cars, really?
Wait.
What?
I give you more. I give you international travel. I give you some Gucci.
Ooh, Gucci. I love some Gucci.
I know. Okay, seriously. In one case, prosecutors noted an attempt to bribe a juror, Nylene.
Not some bribery.
She told the juror that she had $120,000 in cash. Nylene, cash in a bag at a jury trial.
But now he's stressing out about how he's going to launder that money. I mean, now he's stressing out. She's done stressing out the jurors. Be like, man, $120K. Whoa, how am I going to launder that money? I mean, really, she's still, I can't.
And thank God, right? Because the juror reported it immediately. I mean, and was dismissed. And, the juror didn't even participate in it. And then 5 people were eventually charged with bribery. She was able to literally bribe 5 people, dude.
But she still lost. So I don't understand.
I know. And that's the crazy thing, because they tried to bribe a juror and they still lost, I mean, you're right. And the prosecution was that solid. And there's more, because to be honest with you, Nylene, Feeding Our Future had also been flagged before the pandemic. Okay. So the Minnesota Department of Education official identified, early signs of fraud as far back as July of 2019, when it was starting. And before, COVID, before the loosened rules, and everything, the organization's tax exemption status had even been revoked by the IRS in February of 2020, like in the, when COVID was just starting. And yet, when the lady threatened legal action against the state, claiming that slowing their reimbursements was racially discrimination, the state backed off, and it was just a lot going on with COVID, and then they began dispersing, grants. It's just, I know, it's just crazy. I know. It's a system failure.
But then what happened after the trial?
Well, yeah, I mean, her and her co-defendant, Salim, I like that name, went to trial in February of 2025. And then in March of 2025, both, I mean, it only took a month, Nylene. They were both convicted on every single count. Wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, bribery, conspiracy to commit federal programs bribery. I mean, Brock herself, my love, was convicted on 4 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of conspiracy, 1 count of bribery. I mean, it just goes on and on.
So how many total people were charged? Well, then how many people were just charged in all of this?
It was 79 people that had been indicted in the case. Out of those, 65, my love, were found guilty.
What?
I know, the country's largest pandemic relief fraud scheme, they say. The FBI director called it just the tip of a very large iceberg. And when we was looking that up, girl, so I mean, this is the part I want to really dig into. You got to give it to me, give it to us, because, it's a fundamentally a provider enrollment story. So tell it to me.
Well, that's true, because here's what happened, right? So you have federal program rules that were loosened during COVID. The barrier to really enter, the entry to becoming a program site, right, was reduced because everybody was in a rush. You could apply, get approved, and start receiving reimbursements really quickly, really with minimal verification on the front end. So everybody's rushing. The normal timelines, the normal timelines didn't apply. The program sponsors, would have been subject to more rigorous oversight if they were doing a full onboarding. Like, for example, background checks, site visits, verification that the people claiming to serve meals actually had the infrastructure to do so. But then during the pandemic, many of these checks were waived or delayed. And it really just proves that processes matter. So it just is important. Everything that we do is important.
If I'm feeding 2,000 children a day, show up. Look, see me at 2:00 feeding the children, or 12:00 feeding the 2,000 children, right? I mean, fake sites get enrolled into federal programs. That should not happen. Send me a picture of the 2,000 children.
And then dozens of shell companies were like rolled as food program sites. Those shell companies received and laundered and fraud, all this fraud money and proceeds. And here's the piece that really should resonate with every doctor and every provider enrollment professional in healthcare, is that the same vulnerability technically exists in Medicaid. Because when a state Medicaid program lowers the barriers to enrollment to get providers in the network faster, or to serve more patients, or to expand the access, they're also simultaneously lowering the barriers to fraud. Low barriers to entry means fast access for, sometimes people that aren't legitimate. And unfortunately, sometimes that means fraudulent actions.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you, and I think Minnesota has been living that lesson in real time right now. And I mean, unfortunately, all those dollars, are out the door.
Mm-hmm. So it's very expensive, and it's unfortunately very, very public. But the reality is that every single one of these programs has the same underlying vulnerability. Enrollment processes that weren't robust enough to catch people who had no intention of actually providing the services that they were billing for. And I think that's just it, is we don't want to hurt the good ones, or the good doctors that are working so hard to do the right thing, or organizations that are truly trying to help patients. But unfortunately, these things happen. So story number 3, Shannon, I need to take you into story number 3.
I'm ready. Take me there. Take me there.
We're going to stay here in Minnesota, but zooming out to look at the systemic fraud that really has been looking through this thing called the PCA. And what the PCA is, it's called the Personal Care Attendant Program. And that is the state's response, which has been honestly one of the most aggressive and chaotic provider enrollment actions I have ever seen in my career.
It's a very great program where you're able to hire a community person, even a friend, a family member, to assist with your personal care needs. And it's a beautiful, beautiful program that Medicaid has set up,
Oh, okay. So yes, the PCA, the personal care attendant, basically it's a Medicaid funded program that offers people with disabilities or elderly to help them take care of their daily lives. And that's just like bathing, dressing, meal prep, medication,
shopping, for your groceries. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the reality is that the people who are getting this care on usually can't really live with this personal care assistant because they can't do a lot of these things for themselves. Now, here's the thing. The billing is driven by the number of hours of the service provided.
Okay. And then the fraud is billing for hours that were probably never worked.
Well, honestly, that's the most common form. But in August of 2023, which the Minnesota Attorney General described at the time as the largest Medicaid fraud prosecution, what happened was that 5 people were charged with defrauding the Medicaid program Girl, this turned into $9.5 million through this agency. Now, what happened was that the owners and the managers had fraudulently billed for more than 25,000 hours of services that were not provided. And the detail that makes your stomach drop is that investigators found that there was billing as if these personal care attendants had provided the services, and clients that didn't know they had ever had that service in the first place. So when investigators showed photographs to the clients, the personal care attendants didn't even recognize them. So they had never even met these people because Medicaid had been billed as though they had. So these personal care attendants were being assigned to quote unquote patients, which they had never even met. And so patients are being billed for people they never met. And so it's just insane.
That sounds insane. I mean, the agency was using real provider identities to bill for fake services. That sounds insane.
Mm-hmm. So real personal care attendants, real provider numbers, real Medicaid IDs, but all fake services. It was like fake stuff on both sides, right? And so what happened was Minnesota also received more than $7.8 million in Medicaid funds for these services that were supposedly supervised by a registered nurse or, a qualified professional that were never done. And unfortunately, this program, right? So this program says that you have to be supervised by a qualified professional at regular intervals. So there are stops in place so that this doesn't happen. But I don't understand, because what happened is, I guess that part wasn't actually being done. So the checks and balances policy was put in place, but it was never actually executed because some of these clients went years without any supervision, and yet the state just kept paying for it anyway.
And it blew up. How would it even be uncovered? I mean, I don't get it.
Well, then, of course, it goes federal. So the federal government came in hard. And then in January of 2026, CMS announced that it was threatening to withhold over $500 million in federal Medicaid funding per quarter from Minnesota unless the state demonstrated that it was bringing its program integrity processes into compliance. And that's just not a slap in the wrist. Really, that is catastrophic funding threat for a state whose Medicaid program serves more than 1.2 million people.
I mean, could you imagine $515 million per quarter? Can we manifest that in our companies?
Girl, per quarter. In response, Minnesota launched what they're
I need some positivity here. We need positivity for the manifestation.
Well, Minnesota launched what they're calling a Revalidate 2026, and which is, I guess, good, right? Because it's a massive, urgent off-cycle revalidation cycle for all providers delivering services in 14 high-risk Medicaid categories. So we're talking over 5,500 providers that are required to revalidate with unannounced site visits, fingerprint, criminal background checks. I say that for direct and indirect owners with controlling interests, verification of credentials. And then the deadline was May 31st of 2026. They brought in nearly 200 state workers from across all agencies just to go ahead and execute these reviews.
Oh, tell me, did they meet it? Did they meet it? Did they meet it?
Well, apparently they completed the revalidation process, but out of the 5,500 plus providers that were reviewed, only 2,000 were actually approved, which means more than half were disenrolled because they did not meet the revalidation requirements, because they either failed the site visits, they had incomplete or inaccurate administrative data, they failed the background studies. Yep. And then what happened was between October 2025 and March of 2026, they terminated an additional 18,000 Medicaid providers who had not billed the program at all in the past year. So that means over 18,000 inactive provider records were sitting on the Medicaid rolls, not billing anything, but still enrolled. So they were just cleaned off the books.
That's crazy. And it really matters if you're not billing. You know what I'm saying? You're just literally wasting time, resources, I mean, really.
Right, because if a provider that's enrolled is not actively billing, right, or it's like a dormant identity in the system, you have an enrolled NPI, and the reality is that could technically be activated and used for fraudulent billing at any time. So what happens is if you start cleaning out these inactive providers from your credentialing and enrollment rosters, it's like a hygiene piece. You got to clean everything out. You cannot monitor what you cannot see, and you cannot see a provider who shouldn't be on your roster in your first place. And so that is what's true for Medicaid enrollment, which is equally true for hospital credentialing, right? If you have someone that hasn't come on site, I can't do any OPPE or FPPE or ongoing professional practice evaluation, and we're not monitoring them, then that is a monitoring, is that the fact that there's nothing to monitor. So should we continue to re-credential people with zero process or zero action, right? That or activity that we cannot monitor, because you know what? Someone else might. And that's a lot to think about.
Oh, that's a lot to think about. That's a lot to think about. I'm like, you got me thinking about it. I'm like, wow.
I know. So my question to you is what should credentialing professionals take from this Minnesota revalidation massive takeover, 200 million person hire, 200 person, sorry, that's a little extra, but 200 person hire of this experience of cleaning house?
I mean, think about it, right? I mean, several things. First, I'm all in favor of the site visits. I want them doing site visits at the future for feeding the children, I mean, they're not optional. And we know that, I mean, you work in ambulatory surgery centers. You guys are getting site visits all the time. Minnesota's corrective action plan, Nylene, I feel like included the unannounced site visits, like you said, as a condition for the revalidation. And you cannot verify that a provider is actually operating from that address that they enrolled under without showing up and looking at it. The other thing is the ADA things that they verify. And again, this is true for the PCA agency in Minneapolis, and it's true for the medical practice in any city in the country. I mean, if your credentialing process relies entirely on paperwork, you are verifying paperwork. You are not verifying the actual provider, right?
That's a great point. So second, what's another point that we can use?
Well, what do we always say, Nylene? Fingerprint based background checks for owners, providers, controlling interest people. I mean, that's great. Minnesota is now requiring fingerprint background studies for all individuals with ownership or controlling interest in high risk provider organizations. I just seen also that they started all providers in Georgia are now required, for in renewals and new ones to be background. I mean, so I think, you don't want to give Credentialing Chronicles credit, but I'm going to give us credit because we've been out here saying it, Nylene, right? We've been saying it. Okay. Anyway, I just really think, fraud schemes often involve individuals who are not licensed providers, but who are directing the billing and controlling from the finances, because you always say, they seen it in the billing. They seen it in the accounts. Your credentialing process for a group practice or a provider organization should be looking at the organizational structure, the ownership, not just the licensed practitioner, you all. I mean, we're talking from the time that the facility is credentialed to the time that the provider is credentialed, all the way to the bill gets allocated and paid out. There should be an audit process in there, right?
People who are not the providers. And unfortunately, the doctors are the ones who suffer the consequences for these actions that are being done, because sometimes the doctors are not aware. Yeah. So what's another lesson? We got 3 lessons. What's the third one?
So one of the most important is what Minnesota learned the hard way. And I think what every state and every health plan should take as a gift, from this whole thing is that low barrier enrollment is a risk decision, you all. And when you decide that an enrollment or a credentialing process, CEOs, listen out, right? Listen up, CEOs, to make it fast and easy, like In-N-Out Burger, In-N-Out Provider, you are also designing one that is a fraud accessible program. Those two things are always in tension, speed and access on one side and integrity and verifications on the other. And Minnesota prioritized speed and access during the pandemic and paid for it with hundreds of millions of their dollars in fraud. And I mean, honestly, the lesson is not that you should make credentialing impossible. No, no, no. The lesson is that you need risk stratification. High risk provider types get high risk scrutiny enrollment and low risk provider types get streamlined enrollment. I mean, you have to know the difference and treat them accordingly. I think, right?
So Shannon, we have been talking now for a lot of time. So do we have a quick PSA then for everything that we've learned is don't date people at work. Don't date your coworker. Don't have outside relationships out of the one that you currently have. Terminate one before you start another. I think that's a good PSA that we got here. But I think for doctors, I'm going to say, be involved in your billing practices. Make sure that your super bills, your NPI, and your licenses are protected, and that your organizations, when they ask you for that background check or that fingerprint, know that it has a lot to do with all these bad actors that have taken advantage of the system, and it's nothing against you. So we do appreciate everything that you do. And then Shannon, what do you think for our credentialing and provider enrollment? I know you're really big in this space, particularly now with a lot of contracting. What are some of the things that you can say to avoid these things to happen?
So before we close out, we want to leave you, like we always say, something practical. I mean, I just want to give everybody something practical, Nylene, for, the MSPs. When you come across signs of fraud, falsified documents, phantom billing, providers who don't actually exist, you have an obligation to say something, and you have protections when you do, right? At the federal level, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General runs a hotline. It's 1-800-HHS-TIPS. We will put it in our resource information. You can also file a report online at oig.hhs.gov. And most states also have a Medicaid fraud control unit inside of the Attorney General's office, Minnesota including, baby. And they take tips from providers, employees, and members of the public, not just law enforcement.
Oh, Shannon, that was a lot of tea on Minnesota. Now, I have not perfected that accent, and I'm so excited we're on the M's already because I think our listeners are super excited from every state to listen on what we have found on their state. So we want to make sure everybody listens, subscribes, and follows. We are on all the channels. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the things.
We're trying to get on Netflix, y'all, because they got podcasts.
And yes, we got to do that trend with like the Netflix. Stay credentialed.
And not cancel, baby.
Ooh, Shannon, that was a lot of tea.
Honey, but have they subscribed yet to hear it next week? On all of these platforms, please subscribe, like, and follow us.